pow, 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 pow. This is the sound that you would hear if you were a soldier back in the day during the Vietnam War and were stationed over in Vietnam. The poem that I decided to analyze and talk to you about today is called Beautiful Wreckage by W.D. Earnhardt. And this poem is pretty much about the Vietnam War and the struggles that he faced mentally and physically as well. During the struggles, there's a lot of pain, but in his poem, he decides to talk about pain as well as kind of like a contradiction to that, as what if these things didn't happen. So he kind of talks about three main points I would want to point out. First, he talks about how the Vietnam War can be considered one of the greatest lost wars, in American history. And then how, the enemy, which is the Viet Cong, possessed a lot of, guerrilla warfare tactics that, cause a lot of harm and destruction to American citizens as well as others as well. And lastly, medevac was a big part of the Vietnam War, so using helicopters to do a lot of things. I guess helicopters, the Air Force started becoming big at this time. Helicopters was a big part of that. So he first talks about, he states in his poem, in Vietnamese, Con Thien means place of angels. What if it really was instead a place of rotting sandbags, incoming heavy artillery, rats, and mud? So here you can see the first talk that he talks about with an oxymoron and contradiction. He's saying that it's weird how this place is called the place of angels, Con Thien. Sorry if I'm not saying that right, if anyone knows Vietnamese. And, but it really isn't. There's mud everywhere, sandbags everywhere. The struggle is real down there. And it kind of pertains to the lost war because even though he doesn't specifically say this is a lost war, a background of the Vietnam War, if any of y'all didn't know, is that America was over there to try to help South Vietnam get out of the I guess attachment to North Vietnam. North Vietnam was trying to push communism to South Vietnam. They did not want that, of course. So we were there to help, but it actually kind of hurt us in the end because many lives were lost. And so when he talks about this oxymoron between the name of the city, but what actually in reality what was going on, there was no angels there to help him or his soldiers through this time, this hard time. And he kind of states that in his poem, just to let people know that. Secondly, as I said before, the Viet Cong possessed a lot of guerrilla warfare during this time, during the Vietnam War. And America wasn't used to this type of fighting, so we kind of just got out of World War I, II, Korea War, and we didn't have to deal with any kind of big mass forest or heavy mud things that we had to deal with that they had to deal with during the Vietnam War. So because of this, the Viet Cong, they use a lot of guerrilla warfare where they would lure the Americans in, or whoever else is fighting against them, lure them into the forest or into some kind of different place that America wasn't used to fighting in, and end up killing a lot of Americans. So this was a mass casualty war that we weren't expecting, and more Americans' lives were lost, as well as others, during this time. In his poem, he relates that to the lives of his fellow soldiers and friends. So he states, Gaffney didn't get hit in the knee. Arnez didn't die in the river. Ski didn't die on the medevac chopper. And right here, that's just stating, just a couple of the casualties that happened that he physically saw, that I guess were very close to his heart. But as I said, this relates to pretty much all the mass casualties that happened. And then lastly, he talks about the medevac chopper in his poem. And this kind of just, you can see this picture in your head of, since this is Vietnam is a really mountainous country, and as I said, has a lot of forests and things like that, it's really hard to get, trucks or anything there to drive away with the mud and things. So helicopters are a big part of this. I found on Britannica Encyclopedia, it talked about, you know, the Vietnam War and how the medical evacuations were done a lot through helicopters. So he states in his poem, he says, Ski didn't die on a medevac chopper between Con Thien and Da Nang. So as I stated before, it's kind of just talking about one of his friends, but this one person that died on the medevac chopper relates to many of the others that passed away, sadly, maybe trying to get help when they were trying to take them to a safer ground or something through medical evacuations with helicopter. So lastly, to close out his poem, he states, what if none of this never happened the way I said? Would it be alive? Would the wreckage be suddenly beautiful? Would the dead rise up and walk? And right here, it kind of just is showing that even though these things did happen, it's showing us that he's really wondering what if it didn't happen. As the name of the title suggests, beautiful wreckage, he's saying, would this scenario be completely different if all these lives weren't lost, if it wasn't a struggle every single day, you know, to fight against the Viet Cong? And he's saying I believe that he wanted us to just kind of reflect on that topic. And for us, it kind of relates to us as, you know, cadets in the Air Force, even though we hopefully will never be fighting in Vietnam ever again, that we will be deployed, you know, sometime in our lives. And though we may be in personnel or something like that, where we're not the front line, someone shooting at someone else, we will be a part of that environment, or we will know people that are, you know, potentially in situations like this. And he just wanted us to realize that and to see that that maybe we need to look at these type of war zones in a different way. So pow, 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 pow. So as I did that in the beginning of the poem, I hope you kind of see the gunshots as a little different now that I explained, you know, this beautiful wreckage poem to you, and maybe reflect on that a little bit compared to when you first heard it at the beginning of the presentation.